An old woman sat rocking in a chair inside a house that had been demolished years ago, and I still can't decide if what I saw that night was a person or something else entirely. If stories like this keep you up at night, hit subscribe, because this is the one night from my reckless 20s I've never been able to explain. When my wife and I first started dating, we were reckless, not in a way that hurt anyone, but we did things I'd never do now, things of questionable legality. We used to explore abandoned buildings and houses, looking for proof of ghosts. I never bought into any of it myself, that was entirely her thing, but I went along because I liked the girl. Out of every place we explored, only once did I walk away genuinely at a loss for words. It was an extremely dark night, one of those heavy overcast ones that make everything feel darker than it should. She'd found this old house standing alone, barely holding itself up. I was always uneasy about entering these places, not because of ghosts, but because I never knew if the structure would hold. This particular house was in especially rough shape. I had to kick down a boarded-up front door to get in. Inside was what must have once been a living room, except half the floor was gone, a gaping hole where it used to be. We shone our flashlights down and could see the remains of the basement below. I kept telling her we should leave. This place clearly wasn't safe. She wasn't having it, just kept saying to give her a minute, her go-to line whenever I wanted out. She wandered off, checking the rest of the house for holes in the floor while I stayed near the front door, unwilling to trust the wood beneath me. A few minutes in, curiosity got the better of me, and I followed her into another room, this one packed floor to ceiling with junk. She was digging through it, looking for anything left behind by the previous residents, her usual routine, one I never had any interest in joining. She told me to check upstairs. Before I could argue, she added that the sooner we cleared the whole house, the sooner we could leave. Reluctantly, I went up, half expecting to fall through the floor with every step. First room on the right at the top of the stairs. An old bedroom, bed still made, a folded bathrobe at its foot. Genuinely depressing, like someone had simply vanished mid-life and left everything exactly as it was. More junk scattered around. Old clothes, fragile knickknacks, furniture that looked ready to collapse if touched. There was a crawl space in the corner. Sometimes those held the best finds. Inside it was strange. Unopened boxes of diapers and baby food, but genuinely old. Dust and cobwebs everywhere. Some of the food clearly picked through by rodents. The smell was awful. As I was about to leave, I heard creaking, swept my flashlight around, and found a second opening in the corner I'd somehow missed, a narrow path running the length of the house toward the other bedroom. The creaking was coming from that direction. Too big to crawl through myself, I backed out and headed the normal way, down the hall, and to the left. The creaking got louder the closer I got, my heart picking up. Not from fear, honestly. I was fully expecting a family of raccoons at that point. A couple feet from the doorway, the sound was unmistakable. I stepped through quietly and nearly fell over. A woman sat in a rocking chair facing the window, rocking slowly back and forth. Chair back to me, only the top of her head and a long skirt visible. I tried to catch her reflection in the window, but it was too dark. I took a step forward, the floor creaked, and she immediately stopped rocking. I started apologizing, told her we didn't know anyone lived there. Before I could finish, she started rocking again, completely unbothered by my presence. I took another step, asked if she was okay. She stopped again. Then she stood up slowly. Standing in front of the chair, I heard her, not words, just a low hum. Then, without warning, she spun around to face me. That startled me enough to bolt. I genuinely couldn't tell you what her face looked like. It happened too fast. Old, wrinkled skin, that's all I could register. I ran downstairs screaming that we needed to leave, that someone still lived there. She laughed, completely convinced I was messing with her. I begged her to leave, told her someone was upstairs. She wanted to see for herself instead. I pleaded with her not to go up. She went anyway. I followed her up, watched her walk to the doorway at the end of the hall. She said, "Oh my God," and I ran to catch up, bracing for anything. She was already laughing by the time I reached her. Empty rocking chair, no woman anywhere. She asked if I was scared of a chair, kept laughing at my insistence that someone had been there a minute ago. She searched the room herself, found nothing, walked past me, said we could go. Heading toward the stairs together, we both heard it at the same time. The creaking, unmistakably the chair again. She froze, looked at me, mouthed, "What is that?" We stood at the top of the stairs, and she took a few steps back toward the bedroom. Could hear the humming clearly now, a melody of some kind. At the doorway, she saw it herself, the rocking chair occupied, someone humming quietly. She didn't engage, just turned and ran. We both bolted out of the house. She started screaming once we reached the car, asking what we'd just seen. I had no answer. I wanted to look back at that window as we drove off, see if anyone was standing there, but I was too afraid to turn around. I genuinely have no idea what we encountered that night. Maybe it really was something paranormal, unlikely as that sounds, but who knows? Could have easily just been a very old woman still living inside a filthy, half-collapsed house, except the door was boarded shut, and there was a massive hole where half the living room floor used to be. Not exactly livable conditions by any reasonable standard. Not long ago, I brought the story up to my wife. She remembered every detail. We drove out to find the house, completely gone, not even remnants left. I still try to replay that night in my head, try to recall anything about that woman's face. I tell myself it was just an old woman. Something in my gut still isn't fully convinced. What I've taken from that whole experience, more than anything, is a lasting respect for the limits of curiosity. Some places and some things you encounter in them aren't meant to be explained, understood, or engaged with. Sometimes walking away with the mystery intact is the wisest outcome available. If you've ever explored somewhere abandoned and encountered something you still can't explain, I'd genuinely love to hear about it. Drop your story in the comments, because some of the best ones I cover started exactly this way.